Today, I've got these custom pants that I want to make a few changes to, because as you can see, they don't really fit me. So let's get started. Okay, so the first thing I actually want to look at is going to be the crotch here. You can kind of see this pulling a little bit. I know it's like we've got black pants, so it might be a little bit hard to see, but this pulling here horizontally shows that it's a little bit too tight in my thigh area. And the pockets also are showing that by kind of flaring out a little bit here because they're supposed to sit maybe a little bit more flat. So what we're gonna do is actually open up the crotch seam, and we're gonna actually add a gusset into it to give me more room there. The second thing I'd actually am gonna do is take in that waist, but the reason why we wanna start with the crotch is because I wanna make sure I know where the pants sit before I take this in, because I might have to take less than what's currently sitting on me. To start, we're actually just gonna seam rip this line here. The designer actually gave me this really nice one seam. As you can see, all that detailing comes together in a single seam. So that's great for us. And to know how much or how long we want to seam rip, where it was tight for me was basically from the crotch to probably about my knee, because I do want a baggier fit. So when we seam rip, I'm going to seam rip about to where my knee was. So from here to here on either side. And you may be asking, well, what are we going to put in between it? Well, I have something for that. This lovely panel here, as you can see, is splotchy. So splotchy. I tried to dye this several different times because I really wanted to get this to match, because I thought it would be fun to have this fun little gray in the inseam. But I have given up. I have. It took way too long, too many days, too many trials. We're just going to use this piece. I like it. It's close enough. Okay, so I'm just going to mark my stopping point here. And I'm just going to grab my seam ripper and just get it in between there and just start pulling. Ooh. And sometimes when it's nice, we can just rip. And that's always so much fun. Wow, so easy. We love a good pair. Great, wow. Took me 2 seconds. Now that it's open, we are actually just going to take that panel I showed you, and we're just going to pin this together. So right sides together, I'm just kind of pinning it in the middle of the fabric because it's about as long as I want it to go. And I'm just going to pin it enough so that when we try this on, it feels like a real seam. It's not gaping anywhere. All the way to the end. Okay, so now we've got that panel attached. So to determine how wide you want it is honestly just going to be a guessing game. So we're going to turn these pants inside out. And so I probably don't want it to be this wide. I probably want, I'm gonna guess, maybe about 3 inches to give me that baggy effect. So what I'm gonna do is mark 3.5 because we wanna add some seam allowance. And I'm gonna match my mark there to the edge of the center point there, and then pin them together. And so now we have, as you can see, this nice straight edge. So all I'm going to do now is kind of pull it to see how it wants to lay. And you can kind of see a little bit better from this side. And I'm just going to pin that along as it wants to sit by itself. Okay, now same thing on this side. I'm gonna tuck those out a little bit. And then I'm gonna take the edge there and make sure it's flat. And it looks like that's where it wants to sit, so I'm gonna pin that side too. And then again, just make sure to get your endpoints because that is gonna matter a lot when we try them on. Okay, now we're gonna flip them right side out. And voila, you can kind of see it has this nice shape to it by itself. And you see that's the gaping we don't want, so I might just put one more pin there. But we will go try these on and see how they feel. Okay, so I already really like them. I don't feel much tightness here. Now I actually do want to go ahead and pinch that since I like where this is sitting on the inside there, if you can kind of see. I also do like the gray on the inside. I think it's close enough that it matches pretty well. So I'm just gonna grab my clip here and just clip that waist in to see how much we're taking in there. And then I'll put one more clip here. See, this is why you always want a friend to help you fit your own clothes. But, and oh, I'll get a little piece of chalk and mark there because, there we go. Okay. And like right there, I want to ease out. Yeah, I think so. Okay, great. So we'll just actually go ahead and sew that in, serge out the excess, and we'll move on to the waist. So let's go do that. One more day. My life has waited. So we're going to start with the side that matches perfectly together there. And we're just going to match that seam allowance that it has, which it looks to be about a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And we're just going to want to start at that end spot where we seam ripped. And make sure to take your pins out. And I'll replace them with these as I go. Okay. Make sure you like take all your little threads out. That way you don't have to take them out after because that's such a pain. Okay, we'll start here and literally just go all the way down to the other side. So now that that's done, we are going to look at the other side that is still pinned. And this side, if you could kind of see, is laying really nice, but this side is kind of a little bit more. It's not perfectly lining up. So I'm just taking out the pin until our center point, which is that center crotch seam. And I'm just gonna pull it, oops, one more time, kind of flat to see if we can get the issue to fix itself. There. Yeah. Okay, then I'm gonna repin that. Just by slightly stretching it so it'll lay where it wants to. Okay, and now we're ready to sew this side. Okay, so again, we're gonna start where we just stopped seam ripping. And that kind of clear my path with all these little threads in the way. Okay. And so we're still wanting that 1/2 inch, but now I've lost my guide. So I'm just following this kind of line you can see from the previous stitching line. It's definitely harder to tell with it being a black fabric, but as long as it's close enough, it'll be good. Okay, let's take those out. Okay, and then back stop again right at that end point. And now we are going to cut all our excess and then serge either side here together. So with all this excess, I just want to pre-cut it before I put it in the serger because otherwise it'll be too much for it to cut. So I'll probably leave about 1 inch for it to cut by itself. And we're just gonna cut it. You don't have to make it look pretty. That's what the serger's for. All the way down. Perfect. Okay, and now we'll just run those edges through the serger. Okay, and we'll do the same to the other side, just so it has matching stitching. Okay, so then the last thing we're gonna do for this gusset before we press is actually give a little tack so that where we seam ripped, it won't keep running the thread open. So it'll just be at that edge there. So right at this edge here, I'm just gonna fold it, and we're just gonna tack that little section down right next to the seam there. So you can do on top of it, but I would also do one that's right next to it. Okay, just right there. And then we'll do the same to the other end. So again, this section here, not where the gusset starts, but just above it, we're tacking just like maybe 3 or 4 stitches. So again, we're gonna fold that. I'm just keeping my finger where that edge started, and then placing it down, and then tacking it there. And that's it. So we're over at the iron, and now we're just going to press out the gusset. So I'm just gonna put my ham in there and then kind of lay it out. You're gonna want the seams to fold outward. And I mean, it could really go either way. I prefer them to be folded outward from the gusset rather than inside there. So we're just gonna give it a nice press so it'll hold. Now, if you notice, there's a lot of top stitching detailing there, and this is optional. If you find that the seam allowance is just moving around too much and it feels weird on the pant, you could actually go back and top stitch your edge down. Again, you can do it with the seam allowance folded in or folded out. That would just give it a more definitive look, and it might look more purposeful. But for now, I'm just gonna leave it like this because I do like it without the stitching. But we're gonna press it all the way down. And you see how nice that edge just kind of runs into the seam. That's why we actually don't cut out the shape of the gusset. That's why we like to pin one side together and let the other side fold naturally, because it makes the shape look more purposeful to the pant. And I'm just feeling with my hands to make sure it's in the right space before we press it. Yeah, and then just cut, again, any of those little threads. And then, so now that we are done with the gusset, I'm really happy with it. And it was a lot easier than I thought. The next time you see me, we're gonna take a look at that waist. All right, so if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, do all the things, and I'll see you next time.